Okay, welcome to today's session in which we'll be covering a topic that has been kind of the rage in the marketplace with regard to the treatment of obesity with the new drugs that have come on the market. And so we'll be covering all of that information today. With me today, returning, is Dr. Dorotea Pulas from the Advocate Medical Group, as well as Elisa Lara, RN from BNA, and also the host of Al Día con Elisa. Mm-hmm. And then our guest today is Dr. Ramon Gonzalez, who is from the cardiometabolic unit of Sherman Hospital. And Doctor, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that is.
I am also an employee of the Advocate Medical Group. And this is a service that is starting to be provided at Sherman Hospital to optimize the treatment of individuals who have a combination of severe problems like heart failure, kidney failure, diabetes, obesity, and any other cardiovascular problems. Sometimes they need a little more time with the provider physician in order to be able to understand what they need to do to improve. And obesity is a bigger issue with this because it is the mother of all problems. And if obesity is not treated, it leads to many other issues. So it's the unit is associated cardiometabolic and weight management for individuals who have the overweight and obesity problem without having cardiovascular problems yet.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, and maybe we could just go a little bit further to define what obesity is. I know that sometimes we hear the term overweight and then obesity, and it seems like for a while there, more people were in the overweight, but over time,
range? How do you decipher?
Over time, we're coming over to what is obesity.
So there is a measurement that is used that is called body mass index, that originally was created by life insurance companies to measure certain things in order to provide services to their clients. Because it was the only measurement available at some point, it was adopted to be able to determine if an individual could be thought to be as normal weight, overweight, or obese. The measurement is not exact, but it's much better than just using the scale. And so overweight and obesity are common conditions in the United States, and that is defined as the increase in size and amount of fat cells in the body.
What I find, people focus on the numbers, and as you know, overweight is between a body mass index, which is a calculation between 25 and 30, and obesity is over 30. And it's not perfect because, for example, muscle weighs more than fat, and also certain people, certain ethnic groups tend to be shorter and stockier versus tall and slender, but it's the only kind of measurement that we have that's universal, that you kind of use it maybe with a grain of salt, but you still use it. And you can also use it to follow people over time.
That's right.
So I think that even though it's people, sometimes there's some backlash against it, but I still think it's the best thing we have.
Yeah, and so the more sophisticated equipment, it's more expensive and it's not available for everybody to use. Nowadays, you can buy anything you want in the internet. There are some scales that you can use that will give you a more approximated level of combination of fat, muscle, and bone. But yeah, so for example, the body mass index of 30 or more is thought to be the level where obesity will be started to be classified, and then it goes in class 1, class 2, and class 3, depending on how high that body mass index is going. But this is mainly for people of Caucasian origin. People from Asian origin, the body mass index for problematic obesity or increased weight is 27, as Dr. Poulos was saying, because of different characteristics. So it's nearly 3 out of 4 adults aged 20 years or older in the United States are obese. And
Not overweight, obese.
obese.
Startling.
Yeah. And nearly 1 in 5 children and teens ages 2 to 19 have obesity. So obesity is not a problem of adults, it's a problem of humankind.
It starts so young. I think that's a big issue now. And I think especially because of what we're doing now, kids aren't out playing as much. They're not as active as we used to be. And I think it's a big factor, no?
I found that surprising also that years ago when I was growing up, there were more people that were overweight and a few that were obese. And now that number seems to be shifting upwards, right, into that group of, I don't know, over 40 that seems to be now that growing population of obese. And I think, but even in the overweight category, I think a lot of people, if they did that calculation, would be surprised to find that maybe they're really close or well into that category of being. And so I think of it as being like pre-diabetes to diabetes, then you see overweight to being obese.
I also think we have to get people over the feeling that the word obese is an insult or something to make them feel bad. It's a technical term. It means BMI, body mass index over 30. It's not that you're insulting them, that you're obese. You know, because some people get very offended when I say that. I say, no, it's a number. We calculate it, and then we talk about what to do about it. It's not a value judgment on the person.
Yes.
It is important to remember that all the people who have increased adipose tissue and they are in the overweight and obese level have been stigmatized all of their lives since they were children. With the absence of appropriate equipment in the doctor's office to start with, the chairs are not the right size, the exam tables are not the right size, MRI tables cannot hold more than a certain amount of pounds, and walking into any place, the look of other people is perceived immediately. So there is an immediate way of not feeling accepted. And that's what they have needed to deal with their lives, besides many other situations as well, because there are many components into the obesity things, and we're probably going to talk about them a little later. And but the important thing is that the body mass index is a measurement between the height and the weight of the person. And so the special equation and gives you this number. But it's not exact, as Dr. Poulos was saying, because all of you probably know who Dwayne Johnson is. And my question always for people is he fat? And most of the time people tell me no. So the discrepancy between muscle size and it's important here. So it's the bigger the muscle, the heavier, as Dr. Poulos said, and the body mass index will not work. So it's so those my two examples in clinic are Barbie and Dwayne Johnson.
Such extreme.
and interestingly enough, nobody wants to be like that.
The efforts.
That's true, right? That's a lot of work, yeah. So what are the effects of obesity on the body?
Well, there are many. So it's we're just talking about the behavioral situation. So it's here we have the problem of what was first, the chicken or the egg. So it's because there are many behavioral components as to why people use food. Usually I can tell you that in order to be able to lose weight, you need 4 important pillars, so to speak, to support the new building you're going to construct. One of them is being able to deal with the skeletons hanging in your closet. So by this I mean all the wounds that you have acquired since childhood. And these wounds are the wounds of the heart, and we all have them. The only difference is that some people have better tools than others to deal with them. The first person in charge to help us deal with difficult situations is our primary caregiver. and it's usually mom. But if mom didn't have those tools because her mom didn't have them to give them to her, we're already at a deficit. That doesn't mean that we cannot acquire them later on in life, but in order to do that, you need to accept you have a wound. And if we are behaving like regular human beings, we try to ignore things, and we don't accept that there is something happening until it hurts enough that we do something about it. So those wounds could be broadly divided into the bad things that happen to people that were not supposed to happen, and the absence of good things that were supposed to happen that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of them. The other one is sleep. If people cannot sleep well, the brain doesn't rest. The brain activates hormones in order to activate mechanisms to become able to receive energy from other sources. Activates another mechanism to make people want to crave for carbohydrates, because that's a quick and easy way of obtaining energy. But it's like feeding a baby. You need to do it every 3 hours because they don't last long with all the calories that comes with. Another one is physical activity. And I didn't say exercise, right? So physical activity is everything we're doing all day. And as you were mentioning before, sitting down, watching TV and playing with a computer and telephone is not conducive to anything. And it's not only children, also the children learn that from their parents. So it's so it's vacuuming, mowing the lawn, grocery shopping, walking. Some people say, I walk my dog all the time. So how big is your dog? Oh, it's about 8 pounds. So put your dog in your pocket and go and walk. But yeah, and then the other one is the knowledge about food. You need to know what kind of food, how much, how often, and why are we going to eat. So it's and those are things that probably we'll talk about that also later. So what happens when someone is obese? Well, there's a mechanical effect, there's a behavioral effect, and there's a physiological effect. Physiological means there is something happening inside of the body of the person. So it's the mechanical is because of the weight. So and that's why everybody thinks, oh, my knees hurt, my back hurt. That's part of it. But the adipose tissue is a endocrine organ. So what that means is that it's an organ that produces hormones. The hormones are substances that are going to enhance the activities or facilitate the activities of some processes in the body. And some of these substances that the adipose tissue produce are products of inflammation. So we are, or people who are in that state of carrying extra weight, are in a chronic state of inflammation. And inflammation is the worst thing that can happen because it's not only joints and bones and muscles, it's the blood vessels. Inside of the blood vessels, it's in many other tissues. And so this leads you into other problems that are kind of like, for example, obesity and diabetes are the evil twin sisters. So there is a term that is being used now as diabesity. So it's
obesity, I like that.
Treat one, you treat the other one. And but most definitely the increased glucose circulation in your blood, that is the blood sugar, increases the work of the pancreas until the pancreas gets tired. And when it's tired, then diabetes shows up. And that's why you have heard most likely that some people say, well, I lost the weight and I was cured of diabetes. Because this was the problem. So there's genetic influences to these issues. So
when you're saying genetic, that is part of why we kind of accept that we're like big boned, or sometimes like my whole family is big, and that's why you kind of continue with those lifestyle. I mean, is that the genes within ourselves affect our weight?
That is a good place to start. There are between 200 and 500 different genes that have been studied that have something to do with obesity. And that doesn't mean that you're going to develop it. So it's most likely that it will happen if the environment that you live in is conducive to that. So there are many different things. So you have what happens to the fat cells, what the genes are going to do. Is this one gene working here, or is it a combination of genes? So if it is one gene, for example, you have some syndromes that happen to children, like the Prader-Willi syndrome. So they're really big and obese, or the and there are specific medications to treat them, or some others like that. A combination of genes that can happen. But there is also another way of studying this, call it the epigenetic way of studying these things. That, for example, when mom is pregnant, and if mom is eating too much, or not eating enough, or exposed to certain things are going to happen to the baby that are going to increase the chances of becoming obese when they are adults.
I think the important thing as far as looking at the genetics, as it's very complicated for patients, and the way I use it to help patients, is at the same time, you don't want them to just use it as an excuse, like, oh, it's my genes, I can't do anything. But it helps them not blame themselves, because some people are very negative about themselves. Oh, this is my fault, etc. And you say, some of this is genetic, doesn't mean we can't address it. You know? And it's so complex that there's no one gene that makes people.
And okay.
I was going to say, no, but you do see, like I see, the indigenous of the Southwest is that tend to be, heavy. And I always have to think that, how much of it is genes and how much of it, well, it might be their diet also, right?
No, but actually there's some Indian tribes, like the Pima Indians, that have a huge percentage of both very high incidence of both diabetes and gallstones, interestingly enough. So I think there is something that's genetic, but that it doesn't mean that you can't overcome, put it this way, nothing's ever going to make me tall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to. Dang. But
You're breaking my heart.
Yeah, sorry. But what you can do, though, is recognize it and think about how might I strategize around it or against it, And that's part of what the whole discussion is. Do we have to get stuck that everyone has to have a BMI of under 25? Maybe not. A lot of my patients, I just try to get them under 30. I just try to get them under the obesity. I think, well, good, we made a good progress. Even that makes them healthier.
Right. So it is proven that if you lose 10% of your current body weight, you'll be healthier than before. Mm-hmm. So that's why I use the term Barbie. Do you want to be Barbie, or you just want to be healthy? So that would be the idea. So 5% of change in body weight improves all kinds of chronic illness dramatically. So the thing about the genetic things, you probably, the most common phrase that I hear is, it's in my genes. So, and I said, yeah, it's in your blue jeans.
I like that. So you can take those off, makes a change. Because the concern in my family, everybody is diabetic. My brother was diabetic, and since he was young, he didn't think it was going to really affect him. Because normally everybody in our family, you found out later on. So you get concerned. So now I'm like, I got to make sure that doesn't affect me. I don't want to get it, because you're taught that that's
my family
genes and that's what's going to happen.
Well, in my family as well, there's a lot of diabetes, so you're waiting for the other shoe to drop on your head.
Exactly.
Or you can either do that, and say, okay, I'm going to get diabetes just like all my uncles and aunts did, and lose toes or beyond. Or you can be like that, fatalistic, or you can just say, okay, what can I do to help prevent this?
Exactly.
There's a way to have an attitude about your family history.
And that's interesting, because in my family, I'm the only diabetic, okay? And not my parents, not my siblings. And so I have to believe that some of it has to do with lifestyle and that sort of a thing. And to that point, I wanted to ask, because I know Elisa, I admire her for that change and that you've been very proactive in really trying to control your weight and exercising and all of that. Tell us about how.
I love to eat. Especially our cultured food, que las tortillas, las gorditas, and all our food. And it's really challenging, because when you go to a parties, our dinners, and everything is really not ideal to maintain ourselves healthy and make sure we make the right decisions. So I'm very active. I run, I cycle, I do triathlons and marathons and all that, because I was so focused that I know it's going to impact me, and I don't want to get to that point. So I probably went to an extreme where now my family's like, okay, this is too much. But I just want to make sure that, our eating habits, start with the salad. I mean, you can still eat your food, because it's really not realistic not to have the gorditas, not to have, our desserts. So I just say everything in moderation is really important, because you still will have to have a little bit. But I think being active, hydrating yourself, trying to make the right changes
I
is
think
important.
I've been on a one-woman crusade against manteca for my career. Now, manteca's lard. Because if I could just, I feel very proud that I've gotten most of my patients, at least they tell me that they make their frijoles with olive oil and not with manteca. You know, I feel like I've made some progress.
Yes.
So in other words, there's ways to substitute, so you can have a food that you like,
Absolutely.
but with a substitution. I also tell them to use Greek yogurt, 0%, instead of crema, you know? They save a lot of fat there. So I try to look at substitutes so people can still have a food they like. And there's also the occasional, splurges, but you can't do that every day.
Right.
You know, you can't have a concha every day for breakfast. You know, sorry. And so there's ways to get around the culture. What's harder, I think, is for communities like that are less economically advantaged and are in a food desert, because the unhealthier food is cheaper often.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say as far as culture, because I remember growing up, the number of fast food places were not that many. You know, it's the big names, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC. And even then you did it occasionally. Now it's kind of become an everyday thing, a
Convenience.
Convenience.
And that's the focus.
And so I think it's more challenging to eat healthy. By the same token, there's a lot more awareness now.
Absolutely.
The impact that it's having on our daily lives, and that's where
That's something that what do you think about the impact of the culture that we have on how it's affecting our way of eating and our daily, way of eating, and how it affects us in our daily life?
So I made a little note about this. It says culture is what makes everyone different from who they are and where they originate. It embraces all the aspects of human life and their way of communicating and interacting with other human beings. Food is an essential part of people's lives and not just a means of survival.
True.
So it's food is everywhere. In baptisms, weddings,
Yeah.
weddings.
right? Weddings and everything in between.
Yeah.
And we cannot live without food. So that's the thing. So people can stop smoking, people can stop drinking, people cannot stop eating.
Eating.
We have to.
Yeah, we have to.
Right? So it's and there are many people that are using the tightness or the closeness that they have to their ethnic foods to use that as an excuse of I cannot do that because, but this is the other thing I hear frequently. You don't know Mexicans. They cannot eat without tortillas.
That's our spoon.
then they hear the Filipinos, we cannot eat without rice.
Rice.
And
But then you have to talk about, I negotiate with them. Well, do you have to have 6 tortillas with your meal? Could it be
Yeah.
2? Could it be 2? And could it be maize because that is a whole grain?
Yeah.
Or I blow the minds of some of my Asian patients by suggesting that maybe they could make a whole grain rice. Because you walk into like a home of a person from the Philippines and there's a rice cooker and it's going all day and that's part of their culture. And they're not going to abandon that part of their culture. It's part of who they are. But how can they tweak it? A smaller portion, a change to a whole grain. There's got to be a way to tweak it.
So it requires education, and but before that, it requires the in order to be able to change something, you don't have to recognize that something is happening. You don't have to admit that something is happening. You need to accept that something is happening. And when you accept, there are no more excuses. So you need to change. You need to do something. So the person needs to do that. And like good human beings, most of us need to have pain before we decide to change.
Mm-hmm.
So something needs to go wrong or something needs to cause enough stress to do something. But if we, by repetition, by going to the doctor, and the doctor, doing what Dr. Poulos does so well, teach them how to do it and find alternatives that will continue to be in their system. So many years ago, that I was part of a substance abuse treatment center. I used to tell the people about drinking, right? And because I was not getting anywhere with them, I would tell them, well, now I spit in your soup. So next time that you want to eat that soup. You even see my face at the bottom of the plate. So kind of as a reminder of I tell you something, you will remember some of these things because you were paying attention to me, right? So that is the idea. So does that mean that I cannot eat an 18-inch tortilla?
No, it means that we should go back to eating tamales at Christmas time and not throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that.
Right.
Now, traditionally, there've always been drugs and medications and diets to treat obesity, overweightness, but now, more recently, we've seen that the rage on the new wave of drugs that have come through, and actually, it seemed like by coincidence, right, that they were being used for diabetes treatment, and then people began to see as a side effect weight loss, which then spurned that whole craze on not even being able to get the medication for diabetes because people were using it for weight loss. What can you tell us about these weight loss drugs, these new ones?
Well, they have been medications for a long time. Some with many side effects, and that's why they don't use them anymore. There were some that were very efficient, but the risk of producing certain cancers was high, so they decided to stop using them. They are old medications that work in your central nervous system. They are newer medications that work in chemicals in your gastrointestinal system and in combination with your central nervous system. So the old ones are, for example, something that lots of people have been prescribed that were trying to lose weight in the past, that is known as Adipex. So that Adipex is phentermine.
Yeah.
And that medication is a stimulant and will show in the urine if you're tested. And many people like it because they feel like they wake up when they take the medication because of the stimulant effect. But it's an appetite suppressant. So and at lower doses could be used for a longer period of time. At a higher doses, it's probably not that recommended because it increases your blood pressure, most likely accelerates your heart rate. And if people are already suffering from anxiety, they will have worse anxious episodes. For people, for example, that feel all wired up when they drink coffee, this medication is not for them.
Also, isn't it true that it's effective but not long-term?
In the higher
Kind of
dose.
was off, yeah.
So you need to take it more than once a day to make it efficient. And if you take it at the wrong time of the day, then you cannot sleep. And but it works. But in the health insurance environment that we have, is one of the cheaper medications that people can pay out of pocket for and use. So it's when everything else is denied. So the next one is Topamax, and also known as topiramate. It is a medication that was created to be an anti-epileptic drug. But then they discovered that these people were not having migraines and headaches anymore. So the main use now is prevention of migraines and headaches. But then they discovered they were losing weight. So it's an appetite suppressant as well. So every medication, we need to know they have side effects. Some people feel them all, some other people not that many. The combination of phentermine and topiramate is called Qsimian. So they make that medication. And so when they are combined, they work really well to help people lose their weight. Anything that is labeled for weight loss, many insurance plans will not pay for it. And not because the insurance plan doesn't want to pay for it, it is because the employer who bought that insurance plan didn't check the box for those benefits for the employee. So it's more than just one layer of things. And that has to do with money. It's
because they'd have to pay a higher premium.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to do with money. Everything is money. So it's so you have that. Then you have another medication that is called, it's used for anxiety and depression. There's Wellbutrin or bupropion. So works on the appetite center of the brain and decreases cravings. And there's another medication called naltrexone that works on the craving centers of the brain. So naltrexone and naloxone are in the same family of medicine. So naloxone is what you hear.
Narcan.
You said
It's Narcan.
Narcan as a spray for
Oh, for overdoses, really?
So when you use the naltrexone for weight loss, if you go to the dentist for a root canal, Tylenol 3 is not going to work.
What?
The Tylenol 3 is not going to
Yeah.
work. So it's the combination of Wellbutrin and naltrexone is called Contrave. So it works well for many people. So Wellbutrin is not good for some people that have certain types of anxiety because it worsens the anxiety too. So Wellbutrin is a weight-friendly antidepressant. Many antidepressants are not. Many antipsychotics are not.
Do they make you gain weight?
Yep. And can increase your blood sugar too. So it's so you have those there. So then we go to the injectables. That's the ones that you were asking about. So initially they were called Ozempic. Ozempic was the one that was created. So it's the active ingredient is called semaglutide. So Ozempic has a twin sister that is called Wegovy. So it's exactly the same component, semaglutide, just a different name to get approval by the FDA for weight management. The interesting thing about this medication is that a study was released last November, October, indicating that semaglutide is cardioprotective, and so it's a medication that could be used as a primary indication for prevention of more strokes or heart attacks in people who have had those episodes already. So it works really well with that. So it's regardless if they have obesity or diabetes, and if you use that, you need to kind of get some type of prior approval and send documentation that you're working on that, and it usually gets approved. So the Wegovy is the one that is used for the weight loss. So it's a medication that is used once a week. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, or constipation are possible because it works in your gastrointestinal system and slowing the movement of it. And so it works on the GLP-1. It's called a GLP-1 agonist, meaning that it's going to make a component inside of your pancreas work more to be more efficient in the use of insulin. And that same component goes to your main computer center in the brain to tell you that you're not hungry. So you're not going to feel that you're not hungry. So when you're eating, instead of eating the whole hamburger, you might eat only half of it. Or say, oh, I don't want it anymore. So it's, and things of that nature. If you eat things that have a high content of fat or carbohydrates, you will have all the side effects of the medication. So side effects usually appear between the second and the third day after the injection. So that's that one. So and then so the other pharmaceutical company that is working on this that is now available is Mounjaro. That is the medication used for diabetes. So Ozempic and Mounjaro are for diabetes. Insurance plans will not pay for a different thing. So Mounjaro has a twin sister that is called Zepbound. And that Zepbound, the active ingredient is called tirzepatide. And it's a very interesting chemical that works in the pancreas as well, and in the appetite center of the brain. But it has two components, a GIP and a GLP-1. So it's studies have shown that has 20% more efficiency in weight loss than Wegovy. As far as I can tell, they don't have any studies yet indicating that they are cardioprotective, but they're in the same family, so it's easily to assume that they might be. And so it's an excellent medication too, but same side effects. That they are not cheap, and so that's why that's the problem. So they are. If you want to pay out of pocket for them, is more than $1,000.
Wow. Do you find
A week?
I've had
A month?
Yeah, I've had some patients who have made a good success, but since these drugs are relatively new, what's your opinion on maintenance? Because I find that even people that are quite motivated, that have made very excellent progress, if they stop one of the two, then even though they're still doing a lot of the lifestyle, they're making the best efforts, the weight's starting to creep up. So what is your feeling on a low dose as a maintenance? And are the insurances covering it?
You can use any of all these medications that I talked about until you reach your goal. And then all the medications do the same thing. As soon as you stop them, the magic goes away. The appetite returns. So you need to have a very strong plan B to support what you're doing. So remember I mentioned the behavioral component is very important because it's, Mark Twain said this about smoking. It is really easy to stop smoking. I have done it 100 times. It's the same thing about food. Then you can lose weight, but then you regain it. And the thing is, your body is trying to survive. So there's a set mark in your brain of your heaviest weight ever. That's a permanent mark. And every time your body detects that you're losing weight, activates mechanisms to make you want to eat, slows down your metabolism, and to get the metabolism going takes a long time. So this is a permanent mechanism. So it becomes a fight between your willpower and your biology. And the reason being is because thousands of years ago, we couldn't find a 1,500 calorie diet anywhere, right? So we didn't know we were going to eat. Now we just grab the phone and the food is at the door, maybe half chewed. So we have to work that hard. And so it's.
But are the insurances, if you try to keep someone, say, on the lowest dose long term, have you found that it's covered?
Many insurance companies do not want to give the low dose for more than 4 weeks because they are using the studies as the excuse to say, well, the study says that the therapeutic dose is this one, so you need to move up to that one. And but sometimes we need to maintain the patient at the lower dose because that's the only way they can
Keep the weight on.
take the medication without having
So
side
far,
effects.
I've only had 2 patients that I was able to get approved for either, actually, they had to show that they had gained again somewhat to put them back on.
Yep.
Like
So do you only give these for a period of time?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is a period of time?
As long as you
Until you reach your goal,
Yeah.
and then you have to come off of it.
as some insurance companies are very, very picky and want you to send them, when you want to renew a RX, when you want to renew the prescription, they want you to send them what the patient's weight was and what it is now, and they'll say, well, the patient's not losing enough weight, we're not going to approve it. It's very intrusive. And that's why I really try to motivate the patients to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to really work on this now.
Yeah, there are some studies that says that if you have not been able to lose 3 to 5% of the original body weight in 3 months, the medication is not working. You need to change to something else. So, but then you need to kind of plug into the equation the behavior of the patient, because the patient most of the time thinks this is magic.
Yeah, a magical pill.
They use the medication, they don't have to do anything else. And so that's why when I meet with them, I make emphasis and strong emphasis on the behavioral part, because this is a marathon race. Obesity is a chronic illness. And as using the chronic word means no cure yet. So and I tell them, so if someone with diabetes stops their medication, something bad happens. If you stop what you're doing, you will go back to where you are or worse than that. And some people are 36 years old, some people are 28. So I tell them, so between now and 100, there's many years. So what are you going to do if when you're 40 or 50? Or what are you going to do after your next pregnancy? Right, so because all these medications, important to mention, not good for pregnancy.
And can you prescribe these medications for people only if they're in the obese category, or can you prescribe them in the overweight category?
You can prescribe them if the person has a body mass index of 27 with a comorbidity.
Like 27 plus hypertension, 27 plus diabetes.
Diabetes or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's all the practical considerations too that they're very hard to get, and you have to wait. Even if it's approved, then sometimes there's shortages. It's been a very frustrating process, but I would think that I think where we should be going as a society with these medications is to say that obesity is a chronic illness. Patients have to do their part. It's just like diabetes. no one is going to take insulin and then just have a dozen donuts. That won't work. They could, but they won't work. Yeah. So likewise, you're not going to take any of these GLP-1 drugs and then just have the same lifestyle as before and expect anything to happen that's great. So I think to encourage the patient to keep working on it, but to kind of keep advocating for the insurance companies to approve some of these long-term.
Yeah. So the important thing is the long-term plan. So that's why we require a team of people working with them. So a nutritionist, a coach sometimes, the behaviorist, the physical therapist if they have some musculoskeletal problems already. And we can use physical therapy to get them to start doing something under supervision so they get confident enough to do it on their own too. So we have some, for example, at our treatment center, we have connections with the center here in Elgin where people can get a discount on the gym to be able to do things. Aqua therapy is another important thing. So it's for people who already have bad knees or bad backs. So there are many different options, but the problem is that you need to get the cooperation of the patient. What I tell them when they are there with me is that they have already won the first battle. And then they ask me, so I haven't done anything. So yes, you're here.
To recognize it's a start to me. Yeah. Recognizing
We didn't talk about surgery at all. How does that fit into your clinic, into the implanted patient?
So surgery is the quickest way of losing weight. So in 3 months, you can lose up to 40% of body weight. So it's and muscle mass at the same time. So it's so that's when surgery is not the last resource. It could be the only resource for some people, but it is very efficient. But it's exactly the same problem as with medications. If the person is not willing to follow the rules of the game, so to speak, they will regain the weight. So it's that's what happens with a lot of people. So I have seen in the clinic that we have many people who already have had surgery. I have a patient who has had 3 different surgeries.
Oh, wow.
And it's back there because there are many behavioral things. So going back to the behavioral part, so that's the most important thing, because it's what hurts, and because it hurts, we don't want to feel it, right? So it's like touching the stove twice when it's hot. We don't do that, right? So it's so empathy is important, and understanding of where they are coming from, and to help them feel that they are finally doing the most important thing for them and their lives. And the other important thing is to help them understand that they are not doing that for the grandchildren, for the wife, for the job. They're doing that for themselves. If you do anything for anyone else, it's not going to work.
Okay. What do you see coming down in the future in terms of treatment for obesity? Right now, I think this is pretty novel and new, right? And I was just actually reading last week that not only is it cardioprotective, but they're seeing that it's kidney protective also, right?
There are many wonder pills. So it's, I didn't mention there is Jardiance, Invokana, and Farxiga. They're in the same group too. These medications are predominantly for diabetes, but they have discovered there are excellent medications for heart failure and to prevent kidney problems. And they give you a modest weight loss, 3 to 5% weight loss. So it's so you can use these ones along with the other ones that I have mentioned already, and they work very well together. So they are. It's a very complicated chemical process by which they protect the heart and the heart muscle, but it's at the same time very, very interesting. So it's there are many medications, as they call it, in the pipeline. So there's a lot that is going to come out from that, and so there is a big difference now than in the past with all these advances in biochemistry and how they are investigating. There's, for example, I wanted to mention Dr. Rana Gupta. His PhD at Duke Molecular Physiology Institute. He studies the fat cells, and he says that there are many different types of fat cells in the body, and that they talk to each other. And he says that they talk a lot, and that they're amazing, right? That they get to be so big, full of fat, that that people thought that was their only function. But they have many other biochemical and hormonal processes. We don't lose fat cells. They might die, but we make a little more. But if we eat and we have all the fat cells full, other cells are recruited to become fat cells. Therefore, the excess fat. So, and if you lose weight, that you're going to have the same number of fat cells as when you were heavy. So it's the
Big army.
right? Yeah. So it is.
So I don't know, the liposuction is that good, huh?
They'll come back.
Liposuction will take a big chunk out, but if you go back to your old style in 2 months,
And
you're back
multiply.
where you were.
Yeah.
Good. That's what.
Wow. Can we just shoot them all? Just get rid of them all. I don't even need those. They multiply already.
Yes.
Spanish.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all that information with us today. I think there certainly has been a lot of interest, right, in the field, and thank you for joining us today. And so our next session is going to be on female reproductive system, specifically, what ails women. We're going to look at contraceptives, at STDs, and things of that nature. And if there's any specific question you have, please feel free to forward it to us, put it in the comments, and we'll include it in our next topic. But thank you for joining us, and the dates will be upcoming in the Gail Borden Public Library newsletter that goes out to every home in the district. Thank you for joining us this evening.